Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're continuing with our shirim on Dovid Malka Mashiach, on the world of Dovid HaMelech, and more importantly, trying to draw the light of Dovid HaMelech into ourselves so that we can face the difficulties with ease, so that we can face the confusion with faith, and so that we can face the silence of difficulty with song. And we find a very, very interesting story told in the Medrash and in the Zohar about Dovid HaMelech. What happened to Dovid HaMelech when he finished writing Tehillim? Now, before we go into the Medrash, we have to remember what Tehillim is. Like we started off with in the previous year, David HaMelech's entire life is the story of Tehillim. David HaMelech lives his life feeling that I have nothing of my own. I'm not illuminated with a spiritual light that comes from above me. I'm not like the other avos, I'm not like the other tzaddikim who draw light down from above. I have nothing, says David. Leis lemagame klum. Malchus has nothing. Malchus is externalization. It has nothing of its own to claim that this is what it represents. It's emptiness. That's what it meant when it said that David HaMelech didn't have years to live, and that he had to borrow years from Adam HaRishon in order to live. Because the years of a person's life and the time of a person's existence is ultimately the secret of their tafkid, what a person is carrying out, what a person has to accomplish. But because David HaMelech had nothing to accomplish anything with and had nothing to accomplish because he was nothingness, therefore he had no years to live and he had to borrow a mission. He had to borrow years in this world from Adam HaRishon. David HaMelech has nothing of his own, and therefore David HaMelech understands the mission. If I have nothing of my own, if I've laced the megrame klum, if I'm empty, then it's my job to transform every ounce of my experience in this world, every element of life in this empty place, and to bring it back up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the secret of David HaMelech being Makadei Shem Shemayim in each and every experience that he had, transforming every moment of this world and awareness of being a human being into an opportunity to meet HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Only David was able to do this through the book of Tehillim, because the book of Tehillim is not a book of content or information. It's not conveying to us a historical development of what took place, but rather it is a reflection of an inner world. Is it a reflection of the neshama in its inner process of confrontation with being stuck in a world where the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was not found? And what David Malka Mashiach's job was to do was to cultivate a language, to cultivate a singing out and a praise that comes from that place of emptiness, that comes from this world itself. And that becomes the book of Tanakh of David HaMelech. It's not a book of any specific content, but rather it is a book that allows each and every person's own experience to be seen through the lens of meaningfulness. As we saw from Rabbi Nachman, that the book of Tehillim is not only David HaMelech's book, it's a book for every neshama. Each and every neshama has to find itself in the Sefer of Tehillim. When David HaMelech is struggling, that's our own struggles. When David HaMelech is thriving, that's the moments of our thriving. Both are important to hold on to. We have to be aware of our smallness and we have to be aware of our greatness. That's what David HaMelech teaches us. David, as the representation of Malchus, this thing that is empty of its own content, and therefore it has to transform every ounce of its own experience into a content of itself, which is the Sefer of Tehillim. This is the territory of this world. When it comes to tzaddikim drawing light from above, certain people who can live their lives with inspiration from above, so that's not the perspective of David HaMelech. David HaMelech is when a person finds themselves at the bottom, uninspired, unawoken, unsparked. And it's specifically from that place of emptiness, from that place of the legs that dangle into death and spiritual boredom, that we have to recreate and respark the excitement and the dancing of David HaMelech. What that means on spiritual terms is that there are two ways of living in this world. One can live by way of those tzaddikim who receive from above, which is the secret of the Yichud Ilah, the upper unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where there is shefa and there's clarity and there's unity. And my job is just to get in line with the unity. That's the perspective of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, screaming out to proclaim the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then there's the perspective of Malchus, which is Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Vaed, which is praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu from within the emptiness itself. That's referred to as Yichud Tata. Yichud Ilah represents the unity of all things when HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself and each and every person can live with their own strengths and what they're good at. That's the Shema Yisrael moment in a person's life. But then there's going to be a time where a person is devoid of anything. Ki avi ve'imi asavuni. I don't have my moichet anymore. I don't have all of those products that I work with that make me feel good about myself. I'm left empty. Ki dal va'ani ani. I'm impoverished. I have nothing. I'm destitute. And in that place, instead of trying to draw from Yichud Ilah, from Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, from that unity of self, we draw from the secret of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Vod. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Vod means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because I have nothing, I am going to ensure that your praise arises out of each and everything I encounter in this world. Left with nothing, I am forced to transform everything into the vector in which I'm going to find the deepest light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the secret of the Yichud Tata. Now, Yichud Tata is a dangerous territory because I'm not illuminated. I'm not living with the constant presence of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in my life. I'm walking around this world taking things seriously. I'm taking materiality seriously. I'm taking other people seriously. I'm taking creatures seriously. I'm taking the struggle seriously. I'm taking every up and down, in and out, emptiness and fullness that this worldly experience carries with it. And the perspective of Yichud Tata says this is exactly where you have to meet HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the secret of Malchus. Now, Dovid HaMelech was willing to take on that role. Dovid HaMelech was willing to go down into the territory of Malchus to make meaning out of meaninglessness. But there's a danger there. And what's the danger there? The danger is Gaiva. The danger is Ani. The danger is a sense of self. The danger is coming to a place of thinking that I am God, that I am the one who is in control of the narrative, that I am the one who has the meaning, that I am the one who knows exactly what meaningfulness needs to be conveyed onto each and every experience. When a person is enabling themselves to live with a perspective of Dovid HaMelech, to be like Dovid HaMelech, to wander around the streets of this world, fighting to find the nitzotzos, or the sparks of the Beis Hamikdash that are hidden there, so a person can come to a place where, because they can't rely on anything else, so they begin to rely on themselves instead of reliance on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The perspective of Dovid HaMelech is not that I have nothing that I can rely on, therefore I have to rely on myself. It's the recognition that I have nothing to rely on, not even myself, and therefore I have to rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But there is a very fine line that is carved in the territory of Malchus between my Malchus being a representation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light in this world, or the desire to Ana Emloch, that I want to be king. And this gaiva, this sense of self, this avodah zarah, this taking the self too seriously, this feeling that wherever I go, that's where HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to be, and whatever I do, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to do, that perspective is dangerous because with gaiva, it leads to manipulation, and it leads to ultimately being mistaken in our perspective. It leads to being a shtik avodah zarah when we take ourselves too seriously. And so the danger of all of the tzaddikim who operate in the place of Malchus is that they want to protect themselves from Gaiva, because when I'm down here in Malchus, when a person finds themselves down in the stickiness of it all and in the thickness of it all, the tool that needs to be utilized is the tool of the self. Now, the self is a very potent thing. The self is nothingness that reveals the somethingness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But if I don't work on refining my sense of self at every moment of consciousness, then I run the risk of falling into the all too natural and all too human threat of worshiping myself, of taking my ani seriously and thinking, oh, I am the one who's revealed God down here, rather than I am the one through whom HaKadosh Baruch Hu has chosen to reveal himself down here. It's a very fine line. It's a dak shebedak, but with that boundary, one can have their legs in heaven and one can have their legs in hell. This is the secret that the Kamarna tells us all the time, that a person can be receiving Torah from the mouth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but at the same point, they have to be very worried about finding themselves in the nukva de tahim rabbah, in the abysmal depths of concealment in the next moment. How could it be? Because ultimately the content is no different in either place. In both places, a person can be speaking and screaming out the most halig forms of Torah, the most halig forms of interpretation, the highest levels of speculation. But if it's coming from me, if it's coming from my sense of self, then it's klipa and it's avodah zarah. If my sense of self is emptied out and it becomes a merkava to be megala kvod shemayim, so then it becomes kodesh hakadashim. And at the end of Sefer Tehillim, where Dovid HaMelech finally utilizes every ounce of nothingness and struggle that has been thrown at him to create the most beautiful, poetically woven tapestry of praise of God ever known to man, one that contains the experience of all Klal Yisrael in it. So Dovid HaMelech encounters this delicate point of what is this Malchus coming from? Is the Malchus coming to represent Dovid HaMelech, God forbid, or is Dovid HaMelech an empty vessel that is coming to reveal the Malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And this is the encounter that Dovid HaMelech has at the end of Sefer Tehillim. And so we're going to learn it from the Zohar HaKadosh in Parshas Pinchas. And the words are astonishing, and this is going to help us understand a point that's going to be very relevant to day-to-day life. The Zohar HaKadosh says as follows on Daf Reish Lamed Beis Amud Beis. It says, Oifhu, even when it comes to Dovid HaMelech, he opens up and he says, Hashem lo gava libi velo ramu enai. My heart has not grown arrogant, and my eyes have not grown haughty. Haikra Amar David b'shaisa dahave azil al keif nahara. This is a pasuk that David HaMelech said as he was walking along the banks of the river. He says as follows: Ribono shel olam, klum have barnash ba'alma da'oidi u'meshabech lemare kavasi. That Ribono shel olam, David HaMelech comes to a place and he says, you know what? There has actually never been anybody like me who has praised you the way that I praise you. There's no one ever who has done what I have done. This is the danger of David HaMelech when he encounters that role that he plays in finding the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. The threat is that he's going to fall into the trap of thinking, Aniva aspi oid, ana emloch. And so suddenly, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do when he sees this shemetz of gaiva coming out from the heart of David HaMelech? So what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does is damnant leit svardeya. A frog emerges out of the river. Amr lei, David, loy titgaya. The frog says to David HaMelech, don't be arrogant. The ana avidat yasir minach. I have done much more than you. The masarit gufei al memra demare. That I have been moser nefesh based on the words of your tzaddikim, based on the words of your master, on the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the pasuk says by the Mak of Svardeya, v'sheretz hayor Svardeim. That the Svardeim, they jumped out of the river, and they knew that they were going to die. They jumped into the ovens of the Mitzrim, and they were moser nefesh for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The frog is saying, David HaMelech, don't be so proud of yourself. I've done much more than you. And furthermore, the Su, the Anam Shabeach Mezamer Laila V'Yoyme B'Lo Yishchichu. And you think you praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says the frog to David HaMelech. I praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. My croaking doesn't stop day and night. B'Hahi Shaisa, in that moment, Amar David, Hashem Loi Gava Libi V'Loi Ramu Einai. When David HaMelech learns from this frog that he in truth has not done anything yet, so at that place, David HaMelech screams out and he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I am not arrogant and I have not allowed my eyes to grow haughty. David HaMelech learns a very important lesson from this frog. The lesson from the frog is that what you do with your malchus, the clarifications that you perform, the praises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that come out from your malchus, they're not your own. David HaMelech, you're simply a kli that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shines his light through. The moment you start thinking that you, David HaMelech, are the one who is accomplishing anything, is the moment the Svardei is going to come out and remind David HaMelech that he's done nothing yet, that in comparison to a small animal, he hasn't even begun. It's only when David HaMelech empties himself out and realizes that I am just a vessel to reveal the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu down here, that he is able to take pride in the songs that he's singing. But what is it about the Svardei? Why is it specifically the frog that comes to teach David HaMelech this secret? Now, the frog, there's another medrash that we have to see. That when this frog comes out of the river to teach David HaMelech something, there's a remez that Chazal tell us as well. And here we're learning from the words of the Heilige Kamarna Rebbe in Nesiv Mitzvah and Shvil Shlishi Ois Gimel, talking about the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's found everywhere, and how HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite light rests itself within each and every creature, and that there's no creature in this world, no creation in this world, which is not filled with a fundamental vitality of a chelek Eloikai. Ubazem mityachid u'moiser nafsho al kedusha shemo. And when each and every creature, when each and every figment of creation understands its innermost point of godliness that rests within it. So at that point, it's the secret of Mesiras Nefesh. And this is the secret of the Svardeya that says, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvod. The song of the Svardeya is Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvod, B'mispar Hashav Kalu Tfilos David ben Yishai, which is the same gematria as the words Kalu Tfilos David ben Yishai, that the Tfilos of David, the son of Yishai, have been completed. Why? Why is the completion of Tehillim the same gematria as Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvod, as the secret that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself from down here in Malchus, because exactly like we just saw in the Zohar HaKadosh, when Tehillim ends, when Malchus begins to feel, oh, I've done something in this world, I've been able to reveal the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it begins to think that it's revealing its own light and not just the emptiness that reveals the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So then, Kalu Tfilos ben David ben Yishai, a person like David, can come to the end of Tehillim and say, oh, I've completed something. And that's why the Svardeya has to come out to remind David HaMelech of its song. What is the song of Kalu Tfilos David ben Yishai, the same gematria? What is the song of the Svardeya? It's Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvod. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvod is the secret of Yichud Tata. This frog is teaching David that when you're singing your song from Yichud Tata, when you're singing your own particular song of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, when you allow yourself to take your shape in Malchus, which means to come to face with the emptiness inside and to realize that all one can do is become a vessel for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not meant to bring gaiva. Adrabah, ibcha mastaber. It's meant to bring more bittul. It's meant to bring Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, that it's a yichud tata, that every ounce of experience in this world becomes an opportunity to reveal the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but as long as it's seen through the lens of the Svardeya understands that it has done nothing on its own, but rather it represents a light that comes through it. It's the secret of its Tzipor Deya. Rabbi Nachman tells us that the Svardeya is like a bird of wisdom. What is the element of a bird of wisdom? So Rabbi Nachman says that the bird of wisdom, the Svardeya, has the ability of taking the song of this world, the yira of this world, the encounter with this world, the human being's experience in the day-to-day, hour-to-hour, moment-to-moment encounter with this worldliness, which appears to be empty, and it's the ability to see with das, to bring this world back up to its highest point, to bring yira, to bring all of the difficulty and all of the struggle and all of the fighting for meaning that I encounter in this worldliness, and to bring it all the way back up to the das ha'amiti, which is the understanding that even though I'm operating in Yichud Tata, even though I'm operating as Malchus and I'm Dovid HaMelech and I'm singing the song of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, and it feels that I'm doing it on my own, and it feels that I'm the one who's revealing the light in my own life on a day-to-day basis in this sunken place. What the Svardeya comes to teach is that no ounce of meaning comes from the self. Every ounce of meaning comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The only thing that the self can do when it finds itself in the place of Dovid HaMelech is to empty itself out, is to daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the Baal Shem Tov daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the end of his life, that Al Tavieni Leidei Regel Gaiva, do not bring me to Gaiva. That's Rosh Tevos Esrog. Esrog is Malchus. The Malchus is the place where we run into the stuckness of maybe thinking that we are important. And yes, every ounce of a Jewish life is fundamentally important. Every ounce of Jewish life becomes a pasuk in Tehillim, but it's not because of our own self-importance. It's because that we empty ourselves out to reveal the hyper-significance and the hyper-importance of the only thing that's important, which is the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Malchus. And this very fine line of bittul and yeshus that operates in the realm of Malchus, where a person is fighting to uncover their own meaning of davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in their own words, of trying to create a secondary Torah that enables a person to find meaningfulness and faith within the sunken place of this worldly experience. In that place, the most fundamental thing is to scream out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with bittul muchletas, and to realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's all from you. All of my tefillos are from you. Every ounce of praise, every word that I say to myself, every thought that I uncover that gives me the strength to fight for more clarity in this world, it comes directly from you. All of my ability to face the concealment comes from you. Even though you are the one creating the concealment, it's not my own strength. The strength comes from you. And when Dovid HaMelech recognizes this secret that the Tzvardeya teaches him, which is that, it's Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, to be down here in Malchus doesn't mean to become the owner of my narrative. It means that I own one thing and one thing alone, which is my emptiness. I come to a place of being Mavatal Mayeshus to Ayin, and when I can be Mavatal Mayeshus to Ayin, that's when I go all the way back up to the light of Keser. That's what the Kamarna says when he says that the Svardeya came along to be Mevatel David HaMelech's Yesh to Ayin through the secret of the Svardeya, which comes to sing the song of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad. This is the Avodah. The Avodah is to perpetually realize that what we think we're in control of is ultimately just another opportunity for us to relinquish the control back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not to deny our ability to draw down knowledge, not to deny our ability to sing those songs of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, but to always live with the awareness of the das, that the Tzipor Deya, that the Tzvardeya teaches Dovid HaMelech, which is that Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, that down here in this world, the only thing I'm trying to reveal is your Malchus, Malchuska Malchus Kol Olamim, Umemshatacha B'chol Dor V'Dor, and in the lowest place of the Malchus that is yored down into the thicket of that swamp territory where the frogs are croaking. It's specifically from there that Dovid HaMelech remembers the deepest secret of Malchus is that I'm nothing but you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm nothing but a revelation of you, Ani Tefillah. It's not that I've said beautiful tefillos and I should be praised for that. Ani Tefillah, my entire essence is tefillah, which means my entire essence is a revelation of the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Nahar HaYotzei Eden, that the Naharei Or, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends down into Metzias, it comes through the experience of the human being down here, and the human being's job is to transform those experiences into songs like Dovid HaMelech, but to always remember that while we are the authors and the narrators of our own song, the potential and the capacity and the strength to iterate our songs and to utter them only comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lekel gomer alai, hallelujah. This is what a person sees throughout Tehillim. Whatever the sense of self is, it is measured with an equally strong dosage of recognizing the no self of it all, the recognition that I am nothing other than a shliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is the secret of the Svardeya. With this, we can now go into a story that we've discussed in the past. There's a story that when the Maggid of Mezrich passed away, when the Maggid of Mezrich, who understood the secret of Al Tivyeni Lidei Regel Gaiva, who understood the secret of what his master, the Baal Shem Tov, taught him not to be a Baal Gaiva, but only to know the secret of Bittul Muchletet and to realize that the Ani of the self and the self of the self is ultimately only revealing the nothingness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's self, so to speak, that once the Maggid of Mezrich died, he left the Chabura Kadisha, he left all of the wondrous students in the town of Mezrich. And what happened was that when he passed away, all of the students gathered together to try and recall certain recollections and teachings that they had received from their teacher in private teaching so that they would be able to have clarity and they wouldn't forget about things. And so the Chavraya came to a point in the Maggid's life that they didn't have clarification on. Towards the end of the Maggid's life, he used to get up extra early and he would walk out to the outskirts of Mezrich and he would walk around. He would be matayel in the early mornings around the agamim. He would be matayel. He would stroll around the swamps and around the rivers. And the Talmidim didn't know why he would do this. The Talmidim didn't understand why the Maggid went out specifically at the end of his life to wander around the swamps. And the Balatanya, Schusi Oganalinu, who was the youngest of the Talmidim, after all of the deliberation was done, and it came to a place of realizing that they didn't know why, the Balatanya said, I think I have an understanding. The understanding is as follows. At the end of the Maggid's life, he came to understand that the deepest secret is what? Is Yichud Tata, is to reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu by way of concealment, to reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, to reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the thick of this world, from amongst the creatures of this world, the creaturely experience of this world, the nefesh bahamas of this world, the milchama of this world, the struggle of this world, the hopelessness of this world, the hope of this world. That was specifically the place that the Maggid of Mezrich wanted to come to reveal the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu from. As the Mittler Rebbe writes in Shah HaYichud, that it was only at the end of his life that the Maggid HaKadosh came to understand that Yichud Tata is higher than Yichud Ilah. And this is why Tehillim, the Leshem says, and the Mittler Rebbe says, is filled not with the praises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu by way of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, or transcendental contemplation of the modality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's revelation. Adrabah, it comes from the battles, it comes from the praising of this world, the trees, the rocks, the stones, the emptiness. All of those elements are what populate the secret of Tehillim, because Tehillim, which is the fullest culmination of the Yichud Tata, which is Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Vod, is a love song that emerges from down below. It's not a love song that descends from up above. It's also the same secret. It's the same secret of Perek Shira, that the song comes from the animals. It comes from that which appears to be lowest. So at the end of his life, says the Balatanya, our Rebbe understood the highest expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world is when a person finds him in Malchus itself, in that place of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, where there's concealment, where there's ha'alama, but nevertheless, every ounce of ha'alama and concealment is there to scream out and proclaim the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it could be, says the Balatanya, that the reason our Rebbe, the Maggid, liked to walk around the swamplands is because that's where he could hear the croaking of the frogs. And with this, we understand what the Balatani may have meant. The croaking of the frogs is Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Vod. It's the reminder that every ounce of spiritual revelation that comes about down here is to transform the self into a vessel that reveals the highest light, specifically in the lowest places. Our lives are to be like the Svardeya, which are the Dira B'Tachtoinim, to find ourselves in the lowest places and to bring it all the way back up to Das. As Rabbi Nachman himself writes in the Torah or Haganuz, on the language of akrukta, which is referred to as a frog, from the Maisim of Rabbi Barbachana. What's the inyan of a frog? Says Rabbeinu, this is the element of raising all fallen fears back to its source above, which is the secret of true knowledge. Because the secret of the Svardeya, the secret of the frog, is a compound word. It's a compound word of a tzipor deya, of a bird of wisdom. The tzipor is the element of this worldliness. The Svardeya is the element of this worldliness, being stuck in this worldliness, being concealed in the land itself. Miknaf ha'aretz tzmiros. The songs that come from this worldly experience, the songs that come from the knaf, the songs that come from the hidden points in our lives. But at the same point, what we have to do is we have to elevate it all the way, all the way, all the way back up to das, and in that place we can be mamtik all of the dinim. This is the avodah of David HaMelech, to transform this lowly experience of our lives down here into the highest place imaginable, specifically when we realize that every ounce of our experience is just a merkava to be magala, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad. And this is the secret of the frog. When it comes to Makas Bechor, when it comes to Makas Svardeya, we see something remarkable. That when it comes to understanding Malchus, when it comes to knowing what it means to write our own song of Tehillim, what it means to be like Dovid, and also be like Dovid, who has the wisdom of the frog, to know that all of my strength is not my own, but nevertheless to own my strength as the strength that comes into me from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to sing out my songs like Dovid, to create my own Tehillim, to find myself in Tehillim. The secret of Malchus is that I can find Hashem anywhere. There's no situation in which I can't uncover the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it comes to the emptiness of David HaMelech's life, he wasn't only finding HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the base medrash. He was finding HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the battlefield. He was finding HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the difficult emotions and the positive emotions and the forlornness and the anxiety and the fear and the excitement and all of the myriad manifestations of human experience in that compound form of the nefesh de David, what it meant to be a soul in a body. It's specifically there that the praise comes out from. And from the perspective of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, from the perspective of Yichud Tata, coming to the place of realizing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is found everywhere equally, in the highest places as well as in the lowest places as well as in all of the territories that my life brings me into. So in that place, a person has to reorient themselves to the deep knowledge that Yichud Tata is actually revealing to us, which is that we have the ability to be Megala Kvod Shemayim everywhere. Everywhere. There's no place that is devoid of the capacity to be Megala Kvod Shemayim. It's on the banks of the river. It's on the banks of the swamp, it's in the swampland of the self, it's in those places that the Tzardeya is croaking, reminding us, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad. And we see something incredible. I had the schus of hearing this idea, and I think I've said this idea a few times, from the mouth of Rav Matel Zilber himself, B'Cheder Penima, a number of years ago, where he was discussing the nature of the frog and why it sings the song of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, and what impact that has on our Avodas Hashem. So he pointed out that for all of the makos that Moshe Rabbeinu brought down upon Mitzrayim, the makos were a reflection of Yichud Ilah. It was HaKadosh Baruch Hu drawing down Nisan from above and shattering this worldly experience. And because Mitzrayim was Ervas Haaretz, because Mitzrayim was the place of the Meitzar Yam, because Mitzrayim was the place of Tzimtzum, so there was no ability for Moshe Rabbeinu to draw down the Heilige Nisim of Yichud Ilah within Mitzrayim itself. And there Moshe had to exit Mitzrayim in order to daven for the Makkah, and he had to exit Mitzrayim in order to daven for that Makkah to stop, because Mitzrayim was the opposite of Tefillah. And in order to bring about Nisim, which is the element of Tefillah from a perspective of Yichud Ilah, from Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, Moshe Rabbeinu had to depart the concealment of his life, except for Svardeya. Svardeya is brought and relinquished within Mitzrayim itself. But what is it about the Makkah of Svardeya that differentiates itself from all of the other Makkos that it could be davened for it to stop, specifically within the concealment of this worldly experience in Mitzrayim, where there is no capacity of tefillah? Zak the Heilige Mittler, not the Mittler Rebbe, of Matel, the Stachina Rebbe, Shlita, said as follows. He said that when it comes to the song of the frog, which is Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, so there's a different halacha. By the halachos of Yichud Ilah, by the halachos of where I'm functioning really well, so there's certain circumstances that I need to maintain in order to reveal the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But when I'm functioning from the perspective of the Tzvardeya, from that perspective of the Yichud Tata, of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, that everything becomes a receptacle to reveal the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even Mitzrayim, specifically the Dir B'Tachtonim, specifically the lowest place imaginable. It's in there, in Ervas Haaretz, in Mitzrayim itself, that the tefillas come out from. And because Malchus has the secret of being the lowest place imaginable, but then when it operates within that lowest place, it goes all the way up to the highest place imaginable. And the secret of Evan Masu Abainim Hais L'Reish Pina, that the lowest despised stone of Malchus goes all the way up to become the secret of Reshid Loas Yada. This is the secret of the Svardeya, to live with bittul, to live with the recognition on the one hand that I am the eyes of meaning that must draw meaning into the meaninglessness of my experience, and it's my eyes of meaningfulness that are going to be the ones that dictate how how this moment in existence becomes a love song to you, becomes a way of praising you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But at the same point, I have to be profoundly careful to ensure that I don't fall into self-worship of thinking that, wow, look at my spiritual creativity and my spiritual strength. I have the ability of finding you even in the lowest places. It's what the Svardeya comes to teach David HaMelech. Don't think for a second that Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad and the lower unity is something that is relegated to human beings. Rather, it is a radical secret that HaKadosh Baruch Hu enables the higher unity to reveal itself within the lower unity, so that the lower unity can go back up and reveal the even higher quality of the higher unity, which is the unity of the higher and the lower unity together. That's the secret of Malchus. It's not something that's empty and alone in isolation, God forbid. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always watching it, is always with it, and the Shekhinah is always in a fluid process of descending down, down, down to pick up all of the fallen sparks of mundane and empty experience of boredom and the like, and to take it all the way up back into the Keser. And that's only done properly with the secret of Bittul, with the recognition that I must be humble, that lo rama libi velo gavu einai, lo gava libi velo ramu einai, that my heart has not grown haughty and my eyes do not grow haughty. I don't look at others askance. I don't look in the wrong way. I don't operate in the sense that I know more than the other person knows. Adra, but each and every neshama that is walking and populating this earth is like David HaMelech, who is wandering along the swamplands, like Magid HaKadosh, wandering around the swamplands of our experience, waiting to hear the croaking of the frog to remind us that Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, and that secret of Mesiras Nefesh of Yom HaKippurim, that secret of bringing the lowest place, bringing the body all the way back up. And it's in that place that we learn the secret of how to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the prerequisite for writing our own book of Tehillim and finding ourselves in the book of Tehillim is Al Tavieni Lidei Regal Gaiva. Don't allow me to become a Bal Gaiva. Don't let me get stuck in myself. Don't let me create a separation between me and the infinite light of God, which is perpetually being revealed through me. That's the job of the nefesh of the individual. David HaMelech's job was to refine the self so that he can become translucent enough to let the songs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu be played, not through his own mouth, but through him. It's the wind that blew onto the harp of David HaMelech at midnight when HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down into Gan Eden to be Mishta'ashea with the neshamas of the tzaddikim. It's not that there was a harp in David HaMelech's room that was being played as a result of the wind, but rather there was the Ruach HaKodesh that moved through him, that played on his heartstrings, that played on the chords of his experience, on his breath, that enabled his very being to be transformed into a song of bittul, a song of love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a song of wanting to do absolutely nothing other than find the place for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's revelation in this world, and to bring this lowly place back up to the crowning jewel that it actually is, in the secret of Malchuska Le'elamim. And when we can learn to live like David, when we can learn to carry both elements of David, the pride and the strength of praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu from every pocket of experience that I find myself in, but at the very same point realizing that it's not coming from me, and it's coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who decided to reveal himself through the lowly place of this individual soul, of this individual encounter, of this individual traffic jam, of this individual struggle, of this individual emotion. And from that place, we can scream out the song of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad. And that's going to be the Hiskalis of La'asid Lava, when Baruch Shem is not going to have to be whispered anymore in an embarrassing way. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know what to do when it came to Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad. He didn't know if he should say it out loud or if he should whisper it. The mashal that the Gemara gives is like a bas melech, like a princess who smells this pungent odor, tzike kedera, and she's desiring after it, she's yearning after it, but she doesn't know if it's beneath her to go and eat this thing, and therefore she has to sneak trying to eat it. She doesn't know what to do, so she decides to do it by way of concealment. So too with Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, to proclaim the praise of God from the lowest places, from the swampland of the self, from those places, those territories where David HaMelech was now getting into his own head and thinking that he had something to be prideful about. It's specifically there that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to be revealed from, but we can't reveal it out loud yet, because most of the time we still want to be operating from the perspective of Yichud Allah. But as our neshamos become aware that Yichud Tata is specifically the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to be revealed, so we come to accept that fact. And the more we come to accept the fact that we're Shluchei HaMakom, who are being Megala, the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the Dir B'Tachtainim, in the lower places, and we live with that bittul that the Svardeya teaches us, so then we can begin to raise our voices when we say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lamvad, as it's going to be in the future, as it was in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, where there was the fundamental revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light above and below. But as we begin to say Baruch Shem with more potency and with more awareness of our mission to reveal the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu down here within each and every encounter of our lives, we have to perpetually remember the fact that it's the Svardeya that's singing this, the Svardeya which is teaching us one thing and one thing alone, that it's about Mesiras Nefesh for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Mesiras Nefesh for HaKadosh Baruch Hu is about getting over a sense of self and allowing oneself to become translucent with the Spirit of God that moves through them, to allow the self to be itself in all of its selfhood, but to refrain from getting too stuck in that formation of self, not getting too congealed within the positions of self and the notions of self and the self-importance, which also leads to the lack of self-confidence. All of the concepts of self need to be put on the side, and the self has to own itself as one thing. I am a shliach of the makom. I am a shliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to reveal through me is what's going to be revealed. In that place, a person becomes like the Tzvardeya. They can elevate all fallen things to the highest place. We can elevate all fallen things of this world back to the highest place. And the secret of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Lambad, and the secret of revealing HaKadosh Baruch Hu by way of Malchus itself and bringing Malchus all the way back up to Keser to complete Tehillim, so that we begin Tehillim again to find ourselves with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in each and every moment of our lives. Be'ezras Hashem.